Part 2 of my first impressions video. Now we're going to be dealing with Indian henna powder. Part 1 was on Jamila, and if you click on the I button at the top, you should be able to see a link to part 1 and hopefully part 3 of the first impressions video when that actually goes up. When it comes to Indian henna powder, I have a sneaky feeling that this is actually Rajasthani henna powder. 1, because it comes from the same place. 2, because it looks like it's packaged exactly the same. The company or the suppliers of this particular henna powder allows individual businesses to buy their henna powder and name it whatever they want, unlike Jamila henna powder, which if you buy, it has to be under the name Jamila. I guess I'm going to find out if it is the same as Rajasthani henna powder. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut this open, just in case there isn't an extra packaging under this silver packaging on top. I'm just going to do this to make sure we don't get any spillage like I did with the Jamila down here. So I'm going to cut it, but if I'm right, there is another packaging where the henna powder is sealed under. And there we go. Again, looking very suspiciously like Raj powder. I'm having trouble speaking today, you might have guessed. I love the fact that both Jamila and Raj powder have protective packaging that doesn't let light through. That's a sign of a good henna powder and a good company. I'm going to put that aside. And this looks exactly like it did when I opened up Raj powder for the first time. I just want to bring my Rajasthani henna powder back on the screen to compare the two powders, and again they look exactly the same. I'm not, by the way, saying there's anything wrong with naming it something different. It's just that I know that a lot of the really big henna artists, they really like mixing Jamila and Rajasthani henna powder, and I personally like to buy from the same supplier. So if I can get both Jamila and Raj powder from the same supplier, then I would do that. But when it's named something different, it can get a little bit confusing. So you end up possibly buying from 2 different suppliers, even though you could have bought from 1. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with naming it something different, but for the purposes of buying the 2 products, if they are the same, then I would like to know, because I would like to buy from 1 supplier if I can. So looking very suspiciously like Raj powder. I should stop using words like suspiciously, because that makes it sound like I think there's something wrong with it. What I really like about this packaging is that you can see the henna and you can see how much you've moved down, so that when you cut it, you know exactly how much you're going to waste. Whereas when I was opening up the Jamila henna powder, I had no idea how much was going to come out, and I did end up wasting quite a bit. Alright, let's get this very lovely powder into its jar. That was definitely much easier to get out, because I can see exactly where the henna is in the packet. I really do like this double packaging thing. Again, just like the Raj powder, and actually like the Jamila, it has lumps in it, but if my experience with the Raj powder is anything to go by, once I mix it with the liquids and put it out for dye release, the lumps should disappear on their own. Oh look, it's acting just like Raj powder. If I zoom in, take a look at that. I've always found this really strange, but look at the way it's sticking to the spoon. It's like there's this static around it that makes it attached to it. The Raj powder does exactly the same thing, and so far I'm not seeing anything that tells me this isn't Raj. It actually kind of creeps me out looking at this, because it reminds me of the hair on a spider's body, so let's put that back in. And as before, I want to mix it to see what the paste feels like, and I have a feeling I know exactly what it feels like. It smells exactly like Raj. Yeah, everything about this reminds me of Raj, because it's doing this strange thing where there's all this liquid around it, but it's not absorbing the liquid just like the Jamila did. It's almost as though this very gooey ball that it's created is resistant to the liquid around it, so you need to mix it for quite a while before it starts to absorb it properly. It's a really strange thing that I noticed about Raj when I first started using it. Colour exactly like Raj. Yeah, definitely becoming a lot more gooey, a lot more stringy. This is looking like the Raj that I know. Now that I'm mixing this up again, I'm actually remembering how much I didn't like Raj's formula when I first started to use it. When I first mixed up Raj, I hated how sticky it was. I hated how difficult it was to use, because when you try to create dots, the henna from the dot will stick to the cone and you end up with strings all over your design. That completely ruins it. And trying to get this into the cone again, it just reminds me why I did not like Raj at all. In fact, when I got Raj for the first time and I started using it and I realized how much I hated it, I didn't want to admit that I hated it because it's meant to be one of the big league powders, but the truth is that Raj on its own / Indian powder is one of the most annoying henna powders that I've ever used. It's funny how when you're desperate to like something, you try and look past its flaws, and then you mix the powder again and you remember how much you hated it. For the last part of my first impressions, I'm just going to see how the formula comes out onto my practice board. Gooey as always. See, if I was doing this on a design and I was to get these little flicks on the end of it, I would get really annoyed because that for me just ruins the design. It takes away the cleanliness of the design. And I'm really glad for this first impression. I'm glad that I wasn't aware that Indian henna powder is in fact Raj, just by a different name. I'm glad I wasn't aware because doing this first impression has reminded me how incompatible I was with Raj in the first place. So yeah, I am disappointed. But I guess it's time for me to conclude my first impression video on Indian henna powder. Do I like it? No. Would I buy it again? Not unless it works really well with Jamila henna powder. In fact, after buying Jamila, I think that I will not be repurchasing Raj because even though I don't think Jamila is the perfect consistency for me, I think it's closer to being what I want than Raj is. I mean, Indian is. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you haven't been put off if you wanted to buy Raj henna powder, because remember, every person is different. What we want from our formula is different, and so if you have seen anything in Raj that you would personally want, then go ahead and buy it. Thank you for watching and I'll see you next time.